We can have a welcome and introduction message. We can then structure it so that we share and deliver our content or our teaching materials, and then we can incorporate or give some online learning activities for the students to do. And then after that, we can end with a wrap up or a goodbye, or what I sometimes call a summary and conclusion to the online lesson. So I will show you an example of that. But just before that, if you would like to have to actually see a template for a 100% online lesson, you can go to Google Classroom later on and sign into Google Classroom and use this lesson template and check out the template, which you can then hopefully adopt for your own learning management system or your own online class. So what we're going to do now is I am going to show you that template. It's right here. Just let me, I'm a little bit nervous now, hoping that nothing goes wrong. But so I've actually, let me close that, excuse me. Okay, so I've actually created this template in Google Classroom. Okay, and it's available to anyone. You just need to sign in. I've opened it up public. It is actually something that, a template that you can use for higher education universities, and you can also use it for any of you teachers out there for primary school, secondary school teaching. It's quite a simple template. So the top part of the template, I sort of like give some explanation about how you can teach online. And the template itself, I have 3 different templates. One is a full template here. Another one is a template for a live, another one is a template for a live online class if you actually deliver an online lecture. And another one is a recommended template with only 4 items in the template. So I will let you check that out later on. It's a lot better if you can actually engage with it and see and look at the template. But one thing I would like to draw your mind to is that you can see that the template here is actually very, very simple and very, very uncluttered. So one of the things that we need to actually keep in mind is that when students go into an online class, especially if it's 100% online based on a learning management system, it can be quite disconcerting. They don't know where to look. They don't know what to see. And I'll show you now an example of a rather messy looking online class, and that will be a rather messy looking learning management system page, and that will be my personal SPeCTRUM page. So this is for a class that I teach. Okay, so many of you who are using Moodle and many of you from UM would be familiar with this particular layout. Okay, so as you can see here, you know, I've got things kind of a little bit all over the place. I did right here week 1 with a very big messy looking announcement because I wanted to catch a student's eye. And then week 2, I just only had like a little tablet, Padlet kind of like link up there. And then my week 3 disappeared. And then I have something called course focus, what my course is actually going to focus on. And then after that, I had like, you know, resources. Now, as a student coming into this particular page, if they were coming into this page and doing this course 100% online, they probably have no idea where to go because it's sort of like, you know, I have things all over the place. So as I mentioned earlier on, what I'm doing now is sort of like a work in progress. I'm trying to reorganize my own classes and my own online teaching so that my students can actually follow it without having to depend on me being in the classroom, explaining to them or telling them what they need to do, so that they can just get into their learning management system, get into their SPeCTRUM, and immediately follow it. So this is, I'm going to show you now an example of another class that I teach, which is slightly, I'll just change this to the student view so that you can see what the students will see. Okay, switch role to student. So for those of you not from University of Malaya, this is UM's learning management system based on Moodle, an open source, quite powerful and popular software, a learning management system. So what I've done here now is I have actually organized my my course according to topic. I'm still not following the template that I will actually show to you shortly, but you can see now it's a little bit more organized. This is sort of like the first topic, and everything is in here. So students know if they want to actually study or learn about this topic, perhaps this week I'm teaching this particular topic on news reporting concepts, then they know that it's all in one section in their SPeCTRUM. Then the next week or the next class, I might be teaching another topic, and everything related to this topic is all in one section here, and so on and so forth. Now, let me bring you to one particular topic, which I have tried to organize a little bit more neatly so that the students will be able to actually experience, or not maybe 100% experience, but so that they would have that same structure that I keep in the classroom, and they would experience that same structure online in their learning management system. So excuse me while I try and sort of like share the screens. Okay. Now, very quickly, please take a look at the left side screen, and we're going to go into a topic called constructive journalism. So this topic, we can pretend that it is one topic that I am teaching during a 3-hour class. So what happens usually is that I would enter the class, and as mentioned just now, I would introduce a topic and give a welcome. So because I am not there physically to actually welcome the students to the class and give them the briefing or whatever information they need in order to do their lesson, I have included here one label called Introduction and Welcome, and inside here I can actually include my welcome message to the students. Next, I go into the topic itself and I present to them their learning materials. So the topic is constructive journalism. Okay, same topic as it was up there. And the first learning material that I actually present to them are video lectures, slides, and a recording of me actually delivering the lecture or delivering the PowerPoint presentation. So this is just my PowerPoint presentation. And in these two recordings, I used a software called Screen-O-Matic or Screen Capture to deliver my lecture and use the PowerPoint. And I've uploaded that here. So this kind of like follows that regular structure in the class where after you welcome and say hello to the students, we start delivering our lecture. And I also included next other resources that the students can actually read or look at. So ideally, in this introductory and welcome message, I would have actually informed them that they would need to watch my lecture. And then after that, they should go and read some of these articles and look at some of the websites that I have posted here. Then afterwards, so the idea now is that with the video lecture and the optional resources, I have delivered the content to the student as we would in a regular classroom. So the idea now is that the next step would be that the students would undertake activities, learning activities. So perhaps in the classroom, we might ask them to discuss with their colleagues. Or perhaps in the classroom, we might put up a short question and ask them to answer the question. So we do the same thing in the LMS. In the middle of the class or in the middle of the lesson, we then include student learning activities. So for this particular lesson, I have actually included a forum, which I would like the students to actually go into so that they can discuss the material that I have delivered earlier. So this is a student activity. I've just added an extra part here called exam preparation so that they would know which part of this particular lesson would be important, what are the concepts and the important things that they need to actually learn for their exam. And finally, I end the class, or I end this particular lesson with something called summary and conclusion. So ideally, in this particular message here, I would give a summary or concluding message, recapping what they hopefully have learned, and highlighting the important concepts from there, and maybe giving them encouraging messages to tune in for the next lesson next week. Okay, so that's basically the sort of like structure that we can actually use for one particular, instead of actually teaching constructive journalism during one 3-hour course during the week. This is how I would bring that particular 3-hour class into my SPeCTRUM page or into my learning management system. So now this is an example of, it's not perfect yet. It's still a work in progress. I've still got, I actually don't have anything yet in this introductory and welcome message. So I'll be including that in there. So now what I would like to do is to bring your attention to a sort of like template that we can use to create or to structure our course in this way. So the template actually looks a little bit neater than this. Partly because I'm using the template is actually done in a Google Classroom environment. And I've done it in Google Classroom so that I can share it with others. And I actually have done this template initially for my son's school. But I think it's useful for higher education as well as secondary and primary. We can take a look at that. So before I go and bring you into the template, okay, just very, very quickly, let me highlight again the structure of the offline in-class physical lesson versus the structure of the online 100% online lesson in a learning management system. As I mentioned earlier just now, it's basically pretty much exactly the same. So I'll take you now to look at the template, and if we have a bit of time, I will create this. I'll show you, for those of you who may not be very familiar with SPeCTRUM, I'll show you how to actually get these labels in SPeCTRUM itself. So now let's take a really quick look at the template before we go back into SPeCTRUM. So very, very briefly, okay, the online lesson can be organized using just 4 main topics or 4 main labels. Okay, now this particular template, I called it template C. Okay, I recommend this particular template because it's a lot simpler and it's less to look at. So I think the idea that less is more would be very useful for the online classroom, because when there's too much sensory input, when there are too many texts, students' eyes would be wandering all over the place rather than being focused, following one linear sort of like structure. So that's why I recommend a very, very simple template. So the simple template that I recommend here, firstly, would be having a sort of like message by the teacher. Okay, a template teacher pop-in message. And in this pop-in message, or in this welcome and introductory message, the lecturer or the teacher can do it, by typing up a message, which is fine, but make it a short message. If you can actually record a video to open the lesson, that would be even better. And you can actually then upload the video under this particular section called template or teacher pop-in message. So to go back to the Moodle or the SPeCTRUM page, ideally, okay, we could, this particular part, introductory and welcome, ideally I should record a video welcoming the students and telling them what the class is about. And the video should actually be very short. In the online environment, very long videos don't work. Webinars are still okay if we're going to do a webinar for like an hour, maybe maximum 2 hours. But for recorded videos and recorded lectures, it's best to actually keep it short. Maybe not more than 10, 15 minutes. The best would be like 6 minutes and under, and to have a number of 6-minute videos rather than having one long half-hour or 1-hour video. Okay, so this will be where the, I call this introduction and welcome in my SPeCTRUM page, but basically it's a teacher pop-in message where the teacher actually pops in. Now this is important because in the offline classroom, the students actually see us. In the learning management system environment, there is no connection between the student and the teacher. And without that connection, there's, that teacher presence is actually missing from the lessons. So we have to have a way for us to actually show our presence to the students And having this introductory welcome teacher pop-in message is one way that we can do that. Okay, so now let me move on to the learning materials. Okay, so after we have put in a teacher sort of like welcoming introduction template, the next thing that we can actually upload into our LMS or our learning management system would be the teaching material, the content that we actually want to deliver to the students, what it is that we want them to learn. And as you can see here, the content that I wanted to, so we're actually looking at this part now, okay? So the teaching material, it's actually better for us to not to have too many material. Don't bombard the students with too many material. More lectures, more things to read, more videos to watch does not necessarily equal more learning. What's important is that we have enough information, enough topics, enough knowledge for the students to learn, but to present it in a way that even though it might be complex material, even though the topic might be very complex, but we need to present it in a way that is simple and easy for the students to digest. So, and of course, other things that we need to be quite careful about is to ensure that the material, whether it's an online video, whether it is a journal article or a website, we need to actually check to make sure that the material is easy to download and access. And it would be good to keep things short. Now, this is not coming from me, but it's also coming from experts in e-learning, where now the trend is towards sort of like just in time or bite-sized learning and sort of like micro learning, where we don't bombard students with too much long, boring information, but rather we give them enough little chunks of learning, little chunks of content that they can easily digest and that they can actually reflect on and have a greater understanding before they move on to the next chunk or the next little bite size of content that we would like to actually deliver to them. So this would be the teaching materials that we would give to them. Now, if we have more than one teaching material, I would suggest to actually have, like separate sections so that students don't get confused. So if we actually dumped everything into like one page, it may be difficult for the students to see the learning materials, or the teaching materials. But if we actually structure it in this way, where every single material or every single content material is actually topical, it's a little bit easier for the students to find it. Now, next in the template would be the learning activity. So the learning activity could be a quiz, it could be submitting an assignment, it could be an online forum, it could be a wiki, as long as it's something that the students actively do, the students actively engage with. So the learning activity that I've actually uploaded into my SPeCTRUM, as mentioned early on, is a forum. And I will just highlight here, okay? As mentioned early on, this was actually done for students, for teachers of primary students. So even though we are actually dealing with higher education adult students, it's still better to always have not too many learning activities for them to do, but to have one that they can fully engage with. So with the learning activities section, we just upload something, maybe a quiz, maybe an assignment, maybe a wiki, maybe have a Padlet for them to actually do something, answer questions. Maybe it's a set of mathematical equations that they need to sort of like do. So we can actually upload that under learning activity. So then finally, we come to the end of the lesson. In our usual offline classroom setting, this might be like towards, the last 15 minutes of the class, when we actually are done with our content delivery, we're done with our lecture, and the students are done with their in-class tasks and assignments or activities, like the students are done doing their discussions or the students are done doing their presentations. And we take back the floor and we maybe, give a little bit of feedback to the students, or we highlight what it is that they need to improve on, or perhaps we recap what we have learned for that day. And then we sort of like give them a goodbye or encouragement, see you next week. So I've actually done that, as earlier I mentioned on, in this summary and conclusion section in my SPeCTRUM page. So for the teacher pop-out message, I like to call it teacher pop-out. It just sounds kind of like a little bit fun. Some of the things that you could do is you could, as in the teacher pop-in or introduction and welcome message earlier on, you could record a short video message to conclude and summarize the lesson. Again, videos like that should be really short. Or if you don't have a message or not comfortable recording videos, you could also sort of like summarize in a few short lines what you have actually, or what the students would have learned in that lesson, even though you're not actually there teaching them and sitting with them from, say, 9 to 10, but hopefully they would have spent an hour in that particular lesson doing, sort of like listening to your YouTube videos or reading the material that you asked them to read, and then after doing the activities. So you kind of sort of like summarize what they have learned, summarize what activities they have done, encourage them to continue on finishing up the activities if they haven't seen it, and then of course sort of like leave them a goodbye message, like see you next week. So just like in class, when we end the class, it doesn't just end abruptly. We kind of like end by saying, that's it for today, see you guys next week. So the same concept or the same principle also applies online. We should not just end the lesson abruptly or end the topic abruptly. We should have some sort of like conclusion that would help the students to actually sort of like know or remember and recall what it is that that particular lesson would have been about. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing shortly. I'm going to have like 5 minutes for a quick question and answer if anybody has any questions to ask. And then after that, I'll take a little bit more time to show you how to create some of these labels so that you can structure your own Moodle classroom. So I'm going to stop sharing now my screen, and I'm back on the main screen with you. So if there are any questions, please feel free just to sort of like shout it out, but please remember to unmute your mic and then mute it again when you are done speaking.
Hi, Amira.
Hi.
Thanks so much for this. I would like to start on a question. My question, I guess, is quite simple, just in relation to the tutorial classes that we usually have for our classes. So would that then translate to the activity that you have put out as the third item in your proposed structure, or would that be a totally separate thing? Thank you.
Okay, in my opinion, that would actually be the activity that I've put in this particular structure. I think if your classes are actually, separate, where you have a lecture class and then you have a tutorial class later in the week, I think the best thing to do in the online environment is actually to combine it under one topical lesson. So perhaps for constructive journalism, I may have a lecture on Monday and then I have like tutorials the rest of the week. But then I would actually combine the lecture and the tutorial into this one particular topic, and then I'll have the this part here, the video lectures and the optional resources, to sort of like be the lecture portion of the week, and then the activity to be the tutorial portion of the week.
Thanks. Well, since nobody has asked anything yet, I would also like to clarify, does that mean that we also have to set up some sort of a timing so that we tell them you have to do all this, like you have to go through the lectures on this day, and then on another day you complete the assignments or the activities? How would that work, do you think? Or should we give them more freedom to just finish everything whenever they want within the week? Because I assume nothing of it is live. We're not actually live engaging with them. Everything is pre-recorded, preset.
Yeah, I would, again, this is just my own personal opinion. I would probably just sort of like put it up there, and in your welcome or your introductory message, you can advise them what you think is best, whether you feel that, you want them to actually go through the lectures today at 5 and then go through the activities for tutorial in 2 days time. Although I think you could do that, but personally I feel that it's enough to just sort of like put everything in one particular topical lesson like this, and just tell the students that they need to go through it sequentially, not telling them when they need to do it, but telling them the sequence that they actually need to go through the lesson. And just
okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Dr. Helena. You mentioned just now that yes, this would be actually the sort of like lesson that we would actually be doing asynchronously, meaning that we're not doing it live online with the students. I think at this particular moment, given that some students may have not very good internet access, we do need to focus more on asynchronous delivery of our teaching and learning. And when it's asynchronous, it gives the students a little bit more leeway and time to sort of like decide when their connection is actually better, so that they can actually follow the class then. So this particular structure that I've shared here is actually for an asynchronous class, meaning that the students do the class or do the lessons as and when is convenient to them. But obviously you as the lecturer will probably want to advise them that they should complete all of this lesson by this week, because next week you have another lesson coming up. But when they do it, whether it's Friday, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, that would be up to them. But I also have another template for a synchronous lesson, or a live lesson where you actually conduct a live online class. So just excuse me for a moment. Allow me to share my screen again, and I will show you the template for that particular sort of lesson. It's inside the Google Classroom. I noticed just now that somebody did request for the code for the Google Classroom. I will share it at the end of the presentation in the chat. I'm a little bit difficult for me to actually sort of type it into the chat right now. So I'll share the template for this particular Google Classroom. I'll share the code to get into this particular Google Classroom later on. But let me now share with you a template for a live online lesson. Okay, so this actually got cut off, but basically what it says there is a lesson template for live online class. So for a live online class, okay, you can use this template if you are conducting a live online lesson via web conferencing or video conferencing, or even through any other means, like perhaps you might even be doing an online lesson via texting or lecturing students via WhatsApp. You can also deliver your content that way. It's a very low bandwidth way of doing so. And I think one of our renowned experts, Professor Karim from USM, has actually done a couple of podcasts on that. We'll share about that later on. But so here is the template for the live online lesson. It's basically still the same. Okay, what you would have is that, just give me a moment. Okay, so what you would have is you would have your pop-in message. Even though you're running a live class, in order to keep that structure of that, of that usual classroom structure, I would still recommend that you have a introduction welcome message, or what I call a teacher pop-in message, where before you start your live online class, whether it's via Google Meet, Zoom, Skype, whatever, type a short welcome or instruction message in the LMS or your SPeCTRUM page. So in that message, you can greet the students, inform them what they're going to learn in that lesson. So for example, I might say, hello students, in this lesson, we're going to learn about constructive journalism. And then you can give the link to the conference call in this particular text box, so that the students don't have to go looking for it. And then of course, sort of like end that particular post by encouraging students or giving them instructions on how to actually join the conference call. Maybe they have to log in, or maybe they need to actually use a computer rather than their phone. So things like that. You can also give simple common sense instructions like find a quiet place that you're not disturbed. Make sure that you're dressed properly because people can probably see you. So those kinds of instructions you can put in here. And after that, you can then, excuse me. Okay, so after that, so that would be the teacher pop-in message or the intro and welcome message for a live online class. Then you will have your video recording. So obviously during the video recording, you will have your video, a live online lecture. So obviously during that or before that, you don't have a recording yet available. But once you do have the recording available, I would recommend that you actually post that particular video file or link under something called material or video lecture so that the students can actually locate it later on, because some students will probably miss the lecture because of connection problems. Some students may like to review the lecture again because that helps them to recall what it is that you taught. So it's very good to actually make the lecture available, but to do it in a way where you treat that particular recording of your lecture as any material that you would actually post, as if it was a YouTube video or a reading material that you would actually post under teaching materials. And then after that, include a learning activity that the students can do after attending your online lecture. So that could be any kind of learning activity. It could be a quiz. It could be even, I don't know, something that the students have to reflect on and type up. So any kind of learning activity, you post it under this particular section with instructions for students how to do it, where to turn it in, what the deadlines are. And then finally, even though you've actually done a live online lecture, but remember that this is all done within the context of a learning management system where your classes or your course is actually conducted 100% online. So with keeping that in mind, you should also have a summary or conclusion teacher pop-out message so that the structure remains the same as you would if you were not doing a live online lecture, if you were just, posting materials for the students to see. So yeah, that's sort of like my advice if we were going to do a sort of live online lecture, to use that same template that we would use for the asynchronous non-live online lesson, to use the same template for the live online lecture. So you can see it's much easier to see here because now everything is hidden and you just see the topics that you can see. Template teacher pop in. First thing you do, welcome the students, upload your video recording, and then give the students learning activities. And at the end of that particular lesson, have your pop-up message. So if you were actually going to use this template, this part here would probably be the topic that you're teaching that day. So perhaps if you're doing biology, perhaps it's invertebrates. So you would actually type up here invertebrates, and then you would say, then you would sort of like put in all your materials into this template. Okay. As I promised earlier on, we are now nearing, I think we have got another about 20 minutes left. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, now this will be a little bit touch and go, okay, because I'm doing this live with you. For those of you who are using SPeCTRUM, those of you from University of Malaya, and for those of you who are using Moodle, this might be useful. For those of you who are not using Moodle or SPeCTRUM and you're on a different learning management system, this particular portion of the webinar may not be so relevant to you. So if you feel that you need, but you might help for you just to see how it's done, so that you can sort of like figure out how you can do it in your own learning management system. So I've got two screens open here, as you can see. So now I am going to take this template, okay, this recommended template that I have here, and I'm going to create that template in my Moodle or SPeCTRUM page so that I can fill up that template later on with all of these materials that I have here that's sort of like all over the place. So I'm going to switch back to my regular, oh, excuse me, I think type something there. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to my regular role. Okay, okay, so I'm already in my regular role. Okay, because otherwise it would actually stay here instructor or regular role. So I'm already in there. So I can go back to the course page. And in the course page now, I am going to turn editing on so that I can edit the settings. Now, in order to, if you, most likely, I think all of you would probably already have a SPeCTRUM page and you already have material in it. So obviously you don't want to delete that material and re-upload it. So what we can do is to use a different sort of like a format in SPeCTRUM where we keep all the material that we already have. So as you can see, I already have all this like materials and uploads and messages for my students. I'm not going to delete all that and re-upload it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it there for now while I organize my SPeCTRUM page. And I'm going to organize my SPeCTRUM page by adding a section at the bottom of my of the page. Okay, so I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and you can see here there's a button that says Add Section. Now, before I go into that, just let me show you how to ensure that you're actually in this kind of a environment. The settings for your okay, just go up to this part. You know, there's a settings button up here. So go to Edit Settings. Okay, and when you get to your Edit Course Settings page, scroll down to Course Format and make sure that the format is Flexible Sections format. Now, most of us are probably using the topics format or the weekly format. The flexible sections format looks very much the same as the topics or weekly format. So it's not that much of a difference in terms of, you know, how it looks like, but it's very important to actually use that particular format, the flexible sections format, if we are going to sort of like add a new section to create a template in a SPeCTRUM page that's already filled with material. So as mentioned early on, I will create that section now. Okay, I'm just going to create one which I can then later duplicate. So I will add a section. Okay, now the problem though is that when you add a section, it goes down here. So this is my new section. So for this particular section, so I'm going to add two sections so that you can see how I'm doing this for two different topics, even though I'm using the same template for two different topics. So now I've added two sections, okay? And I've got section 14 and topic 14 and topic 15. So let's just say that topic 14 is going to be a topic that I'm going to teach about, okay, positive, right, let me rephrase that. Sorry, okay, active, constructive response. So active constructive response is a topic under the whole course of positive communication. So it's actually a topic. So if you are in another field, this could be something like, I don't know, if you're teaching geography, for example, this could be Malaysian geography. So it's one topic, and this will be something that will be delivered in one lesson. So that would be my topic. Oh, I did not save that. Let me save that again. Okay, active, constructive responding. Okay, so I've changed that topic name. And perhaps I will have another topic the week after that, which could be something called positive relations. Okay, so these are two topics under that I would teach in my course. Perhaps I will teach this topic in 1 week and this topic in another week. So now I'm going to fill this particular one topic up as a template. So this was actually a section. Now I'm going to add a subsection so that everything that I add actually remains contained inside that particular section or that particular topic. So you remember now that we have two topics. Now I'm not going to do any templates for the second topic of positive relations. I'm just going to do a template for the active constructive responding topic. So you see here when you add subsection, you actually get a little subsection inside it so that everything that I will add will, all the template topics that I add in here will be under this one topic. So this one, I will call it my lecturer hop in, because it just sounds a little bit more fun. But you can also call it, welcome and introduction. Okay. So I've got that. I'm going to number it just so that it will be easier for you to see. So this is like the first thing that we should do when we begin the lesson. So so later on, I can add information in here. So I can add perhaps a video if I decide to record a video. Okay, I don't have one right now, but just for argument's sake, let's just pretend that I have a video. Then perhaps I could add that video by adding a resource or a page, or even adding a link. I think I need to scroll down further. Okay, adding a URL link for that video. Alternatively, if I just want to type up a message, I can go inside here, inside this particular topic. Oh. Okay, sorry, actually I have to add a page possibly. So I would add an activity or resource, and I would add, the simplest one to add would be a page, because a page allows you to type content directly into SPeCTRUM. So I can call this welcome and introduction. And I type a short message. Hello, all. In this lesson, we will learn how to respond to others using active constructive response principles. And then maybe perhaps you can actually tell the students that the lesson contains the following. Okay, so perhaps you can number it: a YouTube video for them to watch, perhaps a journal article. I'm typing this very generically, but you'll probably want to be more specific. So I'm going to actually tell the students that the lesson contains the following materials for you to watch or read. So that's the teaching materials part. And then I'll also tell them when you finish watching or reading, please do the following activities. And perhaps you have a quiz, or perhaps you have a reflection for them to type, or perhaps you have an assignment for them to submit. And then I end with a very quick sort of like encouraging remark. Enjoy the lesson, for example. Okay, so you can choose to display this description on the course page, which I prefer not to do, because if you display on the course page, the students will see it as soon as they open the page. If you don't display it, they have to actually click and get into this particular link in order to see it. So this is really all up to you. It's a matter of preference. So maybe just I will leave it. I will display the description on the course page just so that you can see it. So now I'll save and return to course. Oh, sorry, this actually needs to be, this is actually the page description, my mistake. You can actually copy that and include that into the page content, or you can have other content in the page. For example, you could have your video. Okay, I'm having a little bit of trouble to paste the content in there. Okay, so since I can't paste anything in there, I'll just write content in there so that it will allow me to save and return to course. So now I'm saving and returning to course, and we're going all the way back down. Remember that we're actually doing this on a very full page, and then the students will see your welcome introduction message. Or if you had a video, they might actually see the video button here that they can actually click on. So next, remembering the structure, next we add a new subsection, a second one. And the second subsection would be, sorry, I have to scroll down again, would be the, okay, remember we are in this particular topic, active constructive responding. I've done one subsection, and now I'm doing another subsection, which would be the teaching materials that you want the students to see or to read. So perhaps what we can call it here is videos and or reading materials. Okay. So this would be the teaching materials, the contents that you want to deliver to the students. It's taking a little bit of time loading. Okay, so once that's loaded, you'll actually see that title come on. My apologies, I don't know why it's taking a little bit of time. But the idea is that, oh dear, okay, this says undefined. Well, that happens, another little glitch. So let's just say video and article to read. Okay, video to watch. Okay, that's come out. Okay, so it's a good idea to number it, because by numbering this one, students know this is the first thing they should see. And after they see your welcome or your pop-in message, it's good to number the next thing that they should do, which is to watch the video and to read the article. So then you would click on add activity or resource. And then you would, add whatever resource that you would want, whether it's a URL, whether it's a link, a page, a folder, a file. So I'm just going to add a page, just so that there's something there for you to see. Okay, we're not going to do much in here. Okay, so I'm going to save and return to course. Now, if you already have, as you can see, I already have material here. So what I could do later on is just to look for the material that is relevant for that particular section and drag and drop it into my new template. So for example, let's just say that what I want them to read is actually this particular textbook link. I can just drag it. Okay, it's actually going to take a little bit of time to drag it down, but I can drag it all the way down and just put it into my template that I'm doing now. Okay, so I'm still dragging it down. I could also drag these images. I could drag the videos. I just drag it and leave it there. So then the students will know that they need to actually read that video. I'm just going to make it look a bit nicer. So students know now that when they're in here, this will be the material or the content for them to actually view or read for the topic active constructive responding, or for that particular topic. Okay, so now next, we've done the teacher welcome message. We've done the learning materials. So next would be the what do you call it? The learning activities. So add subsection. Okay. So again, when you add subsection inside the main section, it will appear in there as topic 17. And you can see that it's still under the same main section of active constructive responding topic. So for this topic, for that particular subsection, I will number it as 3, the third thing that students need to do, which would be their learning activities. Okay, so the learning activities, you could have a variety, but probably not more than 3 for one particular topic. 1 is also enough. It can be a very simple learning activity. So for example, maybe perhaps you have a short assignment. So you can put that assignment in there. And I'm just going to click add. So an assignment is questions to answer. So an assignment is something, so you would actually give instructions of what they need to do. And if there are any files that are associated with the assignment, you can upload it here. Okay, and then you can set the cutoff dates or the submission dates here and the assignment types, and we won't go through that now. So we've just created an assignment as one learning activity for students to do under that particular topic of active constructive responding. And we go back down and you can see that.
Mira,
Yes?
please share your screen again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh
Yeah.
dear. Thank you for alerting me. I'm not, just give me a moment while I reshare my screen. Okay. All right, so I am sharing my screen now. Okay, and I think it's loading and in a couple of seconds. All right, so here, I think you can see my screen now. Okay, so in case you've missed anything, just to recap, this is one topic that, or 1 week's lesson that the students need to do. And under this 1 week's lesson, I have the first section, which is lecture pop-in, welcome and introduction message. And then I have the teaching materials or the content that I want to deliver to the students. And then I have the learning activities that I want the students to do. Now, finally, I'll add another subsection, which would be the final section to close off this particular lesson. And that subsection would be number 4, lecture pop out, or you can call it lecture pop out message, or you can also call it summary and conclusion for this particular topic. And under the lecture pop out message, again, you can choose to record a short video of yourself recapping the topic and the activities that the students have done. Or you could also, instead of shooting a video, you could type a short message, something like this, where you recap what they have done and give them a sort of like message or reminder of what they would need to do for the next class or the next lesson. So just for argument's sake, I'm just going to add another page, summary and conclusion. Okay, you can type a message in there and save it. And students would actually see now that the one whole lesson is now completed. You have an intro to the lesson, you have a body to the lesson, and you have a conclusion to the lesson. Very much like what you would be doing in your normal classroom in the lecture hall. So what students will see will be, for this one particular lesson or this one particular topic, they have the entire lesson all in one section. And if they get lost, they can go back and look for it. And it's a lot easier for them to follow the class or the lesson in a structured manner. Okay, so you can do the same thing for the next topic, which I didn't fill up now, but you can just sort of like fill it up using this very, very easily template that you can use for maybe if you have 10 topics that you need to deliver in semester 2, you can use the same template for all 10 topics. And that creates a sort of like visual structure that is very consistent from one topic to the other. Just like in our normal classroom or our normal face-to-face physical class, we have a very consistent structure from one week to another. We meet on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. and the students go into the class knowing what to expect. Similarly, when the students go into their learning management system LMS page, for every topic that they go into, they go in there knowing what to expect and seeing the full structure of that particular topic. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'll have just maybe 1 minute if anybody has any questions. If not, I will then end and say my goodbyes, but I will also put into the chat the information for the Google Classroom for the template. And yes, I think that's what, and also the feedback form that I would like you to please fill up. So please do remember that, when I end this particular webinar, I'll actually have that feedback form and the QR code on screen. So please do give us your feedback on that. So if there are any questions, please go ahead.
Yes, Doctor, I want to ask a question, please. Is there any limitation in terms of the data that we can upload on a SPeCTRUM? So my concern is that the video, it takes a lot of data. So that's what I want to know, first of all.
Yes, that's actually something that we need to be we need to consider, because a lot of students don't have, really good or full internet access. That's actually a topic for another webinar or another topic, but because videos can consume a lot of data, it's probably good if you can actually include other types of materials, or maybe use videos that are actually, shorter videos. If you need to use videos, try and use shorter videos and try and provide sort of like links to videos that the students can actually watch later on when perhaps they have a little bit better connectivity, or when they can actually find a better source of Wi-Fi. Although I guess given that we're all under control movement order, that might be a bit of an issue. Maybe we do try to cut down on the videos and use more text-based materials instead. I'm sorry, I'm not able to fully answer that question.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Amira, the Google Classroom, we cannot integrate it into SPeCTRUM. Is it possible?
I'm not sure. There may or may not be a plugin for that. So what you can do, however, is that you could actually just have your Google Classroom in a separate sort of like a separate Google Classroom, but then have a link in SPeCTRUM to the Google Classroom. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will end the webinar now. So thank you so much, everybody, for staying online and also your patience with the disruption earlier. Today in this webinar, we have covered how to actually transfer or transform your offline physical class into the online learning management system, into a 100% online lesson. And we do that by actually following the tempo of the regular offline physical class and putting in a template for doing that in an online learning management system environment. So please remember to scan the QR code and submit your feedback for this webinar. And I hope it's been useful, and I wish all of you all the very best of luck as we stay at home and teach at home and have the students learn online. Teach online. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.